Need. Hannah Pestel. I was drafting on my husband. He was faster, stronger, and younger than I. It made more sense for me to draft as we biked along the side road paralleling Interstate 10, which had a slight uphill, so I switched to a lower gear to keep his pace. This was one of our weekly rides, after work when the San Antonio summer heat was mild enough that we could comfortably saddle up. We both knew for us to stay together, I needed him to lead. My part was to stay close enough to reduce the aerodynamic drag. I felt a subtle tug deep within my womb, and I knew, in that instant, the baby had snapped loose. That's how it felt, like a cord that bonded us even before 10 weeks of togetherness had been severed. It didn't hurt, physically, yet a shock wave reverberated through my body, causing me to pull off the side of the road. I don't know how far he had ridden before he realized I was no longer with him. He looped back to my side. "Are you okay?" "I think I just lost the baby." His face was struck, eyes suddenly wide, lips slightly stiffened, words stuck. "I need to go home." We didn't know then I would bleed so heavily I needed to be rushed to the ER. We didn't know then, when we got to the hospital, I would need to be rushed to the OR. We didn't know then I would lose so much blood that I would need to stay in the hospital, teetering on the edge of needing a blood transfusion. We didn't know then I had experienced so much loss I went numb. We didn't know then it would happen a second time, because that was in the future. And this was then when I went numb, and an invisible vacancy sign hung around my neck, concealed beneath the years and years of thick skin and stoicism, a stone looking like me, sounding like me, moving like me. I was speechless when a coworker came to the hospital, pulled a chair up to my bed at my feet. She gently removed my right foot from under the thin blankets, reached down into a small bag she had placed next to her chair, and gave me a pedicure. I had no idea such gentle kindness could have such a profound effect, because my area of expertise was on strength, heroics, powering through. I spent a decent amount of time researching, experimenting, and writing up my findings in my doctoral dissertation on psychological resilience. There was nothing about a pedicure in my studies. Pregnancy after a miscarriage was a tentative and slow path to unveiling, filled with secrecy and overly cautious actions. When I discovered I was pregnant again, I didn't want to tell anyone besides my husband. It was a subject better to avoid if things did not turn out as planned. I also stopped doing any rigorous physical sports. There were gates to cross when pregnant, and gatekeepers, like the ultrasound woman. If things went according to plan, she'd say, "That is the heartbeat," her mouth presenting a soft smile, proud of her place in this process. This meant we could pass through the gate and move on to the next level in a few weeks, another ultrasound. If the gatekeeper was quiet, her face went blank and said, "I'm going to call the doctor." It meant I would not pass this gate and all of the gates beyond. By 20 weeks, I was feeling more at ease, having passed a few gates, maybe even confident, and slowly let my closest people into the know. That included my work buddies, which I was thankful for when I went to the restroom when I was at work and discovered I was bleeding. Shock. Terror. I don't remember how I made it to one of my work buddies. I just remember standing at her desk and she knew instantly something was off. Her face conveyed horror. That's what I remember. No words, no path of arrival. The memory is like freeze frames. A freeze frame of climbing into my husband's car. A freeze frame of the softness of speech by the nurse calling my name at the door to the exam rooms. A freeze frame of the doctor entering the exam room like she was tiptoeing. The accumulation of these freeze frames were soft, quiet, and slow, like when a baby has finally fallen asleep and no one wants to wake him. And then I heard the thump, 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 followed by the doctor's lyrical tone. "That's the heartbeat. Your baby is totally fine." Another gate cleared, but this one amplified my guard. We'd been talking about names because we knew it was a boy, knew because it was one of the gates. When asked, "Do you want to know the gender?" we were not interested in surprises. "Yes." "What about Austin?" My husband was throwing out names he liked. "No, that's my nephew's name." My husband went through name after name, but in the back of my mind, I knew naming was a dangerous thing. I remembered when I was a young girl and our family visited friends who lived on a farm. I stood on the slatted gate marveling at the cute pigs. "What's their names?" I asked. "We don't name the pigs because we eat them." I was aghast. In the morning, when they served bacon, I refused to eat it. I don't remember when we agreed upon Sebastian. It was before he was born. I imagine it was after some past gate, when we had reached full viability, that he could sustain life outside the womb, even if born before the ideal 40 weeks. When my son was placed into my arms at his birth, the stone within me shattered. A stone I wasn't even aware was there. Guardedness spilled slowly over unplanned events, jarring events, painful events, events that create resilience, or what I call the stone. I was very resilient. The shattering started in the middle of my chest, blasted invisibly out, accompanied by a primal wail I've only heard in movies, usually paired with a traumatic death scene. My death, the shattering of the stone, blown open by love. I didn't know then, after the shattering of the stone, I died, or this resilient version of me. The stone never revived, never able to retrace my steps back to the high tolerance for pain, even though I tried. Tried to get back on my bike with a stroller in tow and a very unhappy baby letting me know he was not interested in seeing me while unable to touch me. I tried by buckling my son in a jogging stroller, but my body was not interested in huffing it while pushing my baby arm's length away. The birth of my son was the death and the birth of me. In my profession, this would be called postpartum depression. There is a history of labeling women disordered when there is a paradigm shift, the first being hysteria. During the Industrial Revolution, when men were making discoveries that would forever change our world, women were showing up with symptoms of that change. Before the change was understood, women were seeking help, wondering what was wrong with them. And in the name of help, the seeds of a new era were planted, hysteria. But humanity is fair, and the mental health system has become gender neutral, offering a disorder to anyone with symptoms, because we all need support when a paradigm shift is underway. And that's what I do in my office, in my home, at my local coffee shops. But what I didn't know then was I was impregnating myself with hundreds of stories, with polyamorous relationships, poly, many, amorous, and love. With my clients, we stepped outside time, got off the clock when we sat together, and I listened to what was being said and what was not being said, and what the others didn't even hear they were saying. And then I understood from the seed level, contained within these intimate connections, what was happening. The story is so huge it overwhelmed me, but I tried to write it and miscarried more than once. I retreated into my world of a curated home with a lovely garden and a greenhouse, embedded in a bedroom community with friends connected through our kids or our love of nature or our love of a home. I thought because of the multiple writing miscarriages, I would never try again. I didn't know then I was already pregnant, and I didn't know then I would meet a man, a living stone, who would help me midwife. You. I was pregnant with you, who I've named Love's Playlist, because you are the creation of so much love. I didn't want to release you to this world any more than I wanted to release either of my kids in this world. A world that believes criticism is necessary for growth. A world that believes suffering is necessary for wisdom. a world that believes proving is necessary for worth and love. How could I release you in that world? Yet I already knew I would, for love.